That's part of it. The quote by Brene Brown is this: "Owning our story can be hard, but not nearly as difficult as spending our time running away from it. Embracing our vulnerabilities is risky, but not nearly as dangerous as giving up on love and belonging and joy. Only when we are brave enough to explore the darkness will we discover the infinite power of our light." Isn't that beautiful? With courage, you will dare to take risks, have the strength to be compassionate, and the wisdom to be humble. Courage is the foundation of integrity. Today's message is the beginning of a series that I'm going to be sharing with you about living life courageously. Because I think that daring to live courageously means a lot of different things to a lot of people. So I think we have an opportunity to explore a lot of different facets of this diamond. In her book, The Gifts of Imperfection, Brene Brown, best-selling author, and as she calls herself, a social scientist, explains what it means to be living courageously. She calls it wholehearted living. And I quote, "Wholehearted living is about engaging from our lives, with our lives, from a place of worthiness. It means cultivating the courage, the compassion, and the connection to wake up in the morning and think, no matter what gets done and how much is left undone, I am enough. And at night, going to bed, thinking I am imperfect and vulnerable, and sometimes I'm afraid. But that doesn't change the truth that I am also brave and worthy of love and belonging." Thinking about what Brene Brown had said about living wholeheartedly, I began to question my own understanding of what this means. What does it mean to be daring and to be courageous? And my memory popped back to years ago. I'm going to date myself probably here. When me and my twin and I had our first real job. When we were 13, we worked as candy stripes in a hospital. I don't know if you have that out here, but we just went down the halls, passing out magazines and newspapers to the folks in the hospital. But we had our first real paying job when we were 14. There was a community called the Neighborhood Community Corps in Newark, New Jersey, and they found jobs for teenagers. My twin and I were 14, and so we were eligible to get a job working at the park. And we loved it because all that we did basically was play with the kids, okay? There were older teenagers who were also working in different capacities, but our job was mainly to entertain the little ones. And we drew and we made costumes out of paper and had little puppet plays and all of this stuff. We just really had a good time, and we got paid for it. But there came an experience that called my twin and I to dare to live courageously. As the program progressed, we began to feel that we were being poorly treated. We noticed that while we were working, yes, it was fun, but we were still working. While we were working, the big kids stayed in the office drinking sodas from the machine, okay? And whenever we went in for supplies, whatever, there they would be, just hanging out, just visiting, okay? And my twin and I, this was our first experience working a real job, and we weren't really prepared for this. We felt unjustly treated. And so we decided that we were going to tell those kids. So we marched into the office, and apparently we were done with our children for the time being. We marched into the office looking up at the big kids, and as I remember when we told my mother, we said, "We told their head a mess." This means that we gave them what for. And then we went home. We just left and went home. Now, on the way home, we were stewing about this, and we were angry, and we felt justified, but when we got home, we cried. And my mother said, "What are you doing at home?" Okay. And we said, we're fired. And she said, what do you mean you're fired? And we told her that we walked off the job because we were being made to do all the work, and the big kids were just standing around drinking soda, okay? And we were angry about it, and we weren't going to take it anymore. And we cried. My mother laughed at us. We were looking for a different kind of response here. My mother laughed. Now, granted, it must have looked pretty funny to her, okay? Her twins standing there, tears running down, okay, and we're so intense here, we're so angry, and we're crying because we've lost our job now. My mother said, you're not fired. And we said, what? Okay, and she said, don't worry about it, okay, things will be all right. She said, I'll make a few calls, you stay home for a couple of days, I'll explain, and then you go in, and I'm sure it's going to be different for you. And it was. That next time, we took 2 days off, we cooled down, we walked in with our heads held high, and we saw that the teenagers were working, okay? They were out doing different things. A lot of them had jobs working the grounds, mowing and that kind of thing here, while we just played with the young kids. But it was our first experience of daring to live courageously. But we all have experiences in life. They may be small, when we were daring, when we were courageous, when we stepped up and we said something and spoke something, or we realized that we were not being treated right and we decided we weren't going to take that anymore. So I believe that daring to live courageously means being honest with who we are, being okay with who we are, learning to respect who we are, and to recognize that we are always, and always have been, and always will be worthy of love and respect from others. The thing is that we often don't know that we teach others how to teach us. And when we are bold and courageous in the things that are right for us, it will be right for others. The word courageous means not being deterred by danger or pain. It means to be brave. Daring to live courageously means to me that it is important that we dare to be as loving, forgiving, and compassionate toward ourselves as we are to others. Learning to be respectful of ourselves as we give respect to others. Learning to live courageously, daring to be courageous, also means living in integrity with ourselves. I'm going to share another example of this in my own life. Last week, I went for my 3-month A1C test. Now, this is the blood test that they do to check and see how well your body is utilizing the sugar that's in your blood. And it measures a 3-month period. So every 3 months, I go to the lab, and they pull my blood and issue a report. Well, on Thursday, the report came out, and it was not good. Okay? My doctor wanted to put me on metformin. Diabetes runs in my family. My dad had it. My younger sister has it. My twin has it. And I have been borderline. Okay? And so she wanted to put me on metformin because my level was higher than it had been. And I said no. I'd heard awful things about metformin, and I convinced her to give me another 3-month period. I said, I know what to do to reduce this sugar in my blood. I have not been living in integrity. And to me that means that we are doing or acting or behaving in ways that are in harmony with our belief system, what we believe is true of us. And so I was out of integrity. I was not doing the things that I know I need to do for my physical health, my well-being. And I told her that I know what to do because I've brought my blood sugar down before, and I know I can do it. But yeah, I admitted living, daring to be courageous means admitting when we have failed without bludgeoning ourselves, okay, without condemning ourselves. It means taking responsibility for what we have not done and choose to do it differently. So I admitted to Dr. Johnston, that, yeah, I've been going out for cheeseburgers and fries almost every day. I have not been on my elliptical for 30 minutes every day like I had in the past, but I told her, I've been mowing the lawn. I've been cutting the tree branches. She said, that's good, but it's not quite the same. Okay? Let's see what else I admitted to. Oh, yeah, okay. I admitted to not taking my pills half the time, okay, because I felt really good, okay, and was going here, going there. Friends would call, and I did not have the integrity. I did not dare myself to say no. When friends wanted to go out for a burger, I wasn't courageous enough to say no. If they serve salads there, then I'll go. But no, I cannot keep eating number 2s, number 3s. Now, occasionally, it was number 14, which is a fish sandwich, okay, if you're interested. Okay? But you get what I'm trying to say here. Living courageously, being daring enough to live courageously, also means living in integrity, doing what we know we need to do for our health and well-being. And also, daring to live courageously means that we are willing to dare ourselves to allow other people to be courageous. I'm going to share this last story with you. Susan David wrote a book called Emotional Agility. Get unstuck, embrace change, thrive in work and in life. And she explains in this book that the way that we navigate our inner life, the way that we respond to our own thoughts and feelings and urges and that kind of thing, she said, this influences the way that we interact with our world in everything. Thoughts, emotions, self-stories. She says that it is our way of moving in the world, and we can make changes there. It drives our actions, our careers, our relationships, our happiness, our health, everything. She has this example. She says, for example, do you let your self-doubts, your failings, your shame, your fear, or anger hold you back in some way in your life? We can be determined and we can be moving toward our goals in life. But just as important, she says, is for us to realize that sometimes those goals need to be changed. Sometimes they're not realistic for us where we are. And so daring to live courageously means taking a look at this and making changes where we need to make changes. She was 15 years old when her father died, and Dr. David was very, very close, she said, to her father. And instead of showing grief, she decided to be strong and to face her world without her father, as if there was no change in her life. And so she went about in school, she was 15, doing her studies and doing very well, and having this false optimism. But she says things changed when her 8th grade teacher handed her a empty notebook and looked her in the eye and said, here, take this. Write down what you're feeling. Be honest. Write as if nobody's reading. And she said, this stopped her. And actually, this was a turning point in her life when her teacher recognized that she was not really this facade of being okay. And what she learned from this was that it's okay to have our human emotions. And what she shares is that this experience actually led her to her lifelong career of being a psychologist. She said, when she began writing in this book, something in her opened up. It was a process of moving all of this energy that was being held tightly by her to allowing this out so that she could deal with the energy, allowing her to feel what she was feeling and to be okay with it. And it turned her life around. Brene Brown says that now more than ever, we all need to cultivate feelings of self-worth, as well as acceptance and forgiveness and love for ourselves. In a world where, she writes, insults and criticisms and fears are spread too generously alongside messages of unrealistic beauty, attainment, and expectation, we are looking for ways to dig deep into the truth of who we are and find the gratitude we have for living. She wrote, a new way forward means that we can't hold on too tightly to our own self-defeating thoughts or the displaced pain that we experience in the world. She said, we can instead recognize and embrace the imperfection that is a part of humanity. What are the areas of your life where you may not be daring to live courageously? In what ways has your behavior toward yourself or someone else not reflected what you say you think, what you feel or believe? Or maybe, like me, you've not been daring to live courageously in what you need to do for your own health and well-being. Maybe your need is to dare living courageously in the area of self-compassion, honoring what you feel, respecting your own desires instead of doing what other people want you to do, being what other people want you to be. It takes courage. So owning and taking responsibility for our thoughts, words, and our actions, our behaviors, but not laboring over how wrong we are or how wrong we have been with the mistakes that we make. This is also a part of the human experience. Not blaming others when we fall down, just owning it and getting back up. And when we get back up, make the needed changes. Dare to live courageously by making the changes that your heart tells you you need to make in your life. There is a teacher who dared to live courageously in her classroom. She wrote a post, I think it was August 23rd, at the start of the school where she worked. And she had been a teacher for 22 years. And she was trying to think of something to use with the children to teach them about something more about kindness. And she saw something called a baggage exercise. And she asked the children, what is baggage? And for the most part, they said, well, baggage is something that's hurting you, that you carry around on your shoulder. And she engaged them in this exercise. She had them take out a blank piece of paper, and she invited them, it wasn't required, she invited them to write down all that was bothering them, all that hurt them, all that worried them, all that caused them to feel fear, and no names were to be put on the paper. And the children entered this exercise, and afterwards, when they finished writing, they crunch up the paper, and they throw them across the room. And then, when all the papers were out, the children were invited to pick up the different pieces of crumpled paper and read what their classmates had shared. This teacher's name was Catherine Louie, L-O-E-W-E. I'm not sure about the pronunciation, okay? But she was amazed at the response of the children. And she said she'd been teaching for 22 years, and never before had she experienced what she was experiencing that particular day with this exercise. She said the children would pick up a crumpled piece of paper, open it, and they'd read it, and they'd cry because it was tough, and it touched their heart. And after a student would read from a paper, she invited whoever had written that, she invited them to share more if they wanted to. Again, this was anonymous, so no one knew. And she said some of the children volunteered to share a bit more about their story. And she said it brought her to tears and the child who was sharing more was crying also. She said, when I grew up, what I had to worry about as a child in school was being able to get to play with my friends, okay? And the children today, on these pages, they spoke about being abandoned by their parents. They spoke about the suicides happening in their family and the drugs and the violence in their families. They spoke about the divorce in their family that was breaking the family apart. And the teacher said, it just tore my heart. And she said that I wanted to hug each of them. I wanted to assure them that it was going to be okay. They will move through all of these things. And she said, then the children put all of the crumpled papers in the bag. And she hung this bag up on the door in the classroom. And she said it would stay that way as a reminder that we all have baggage. And what she realized is that her children were a lot kinder. They learned something about the idea that other people may have it worse than you. Other people may be struggling. To be patient, to be kind, to be compassionate, to be forgiving, because we never know what another person may be carrying around with them. What she was doing basically was teaching the value of journaling, writing out what bothers you and worries you. And this is a valid technique for any of us. If there are things that trouble you, worry you, cause you to feel fear and anxiety, write about it. Write to that situation. Write to that fear. Write to that anger, and ask it to reveal insight and understanding to you. Good Morning America picked up on this post, and they did an interview with Miss Lowe. And she shared with them that she was surprised at how well the children responded to this exercise. And she explained that in those cases where there was incidences of abuse and that kind of thing, she said the proper authorities were notified and would continue to be notified, just so that everyone knew. She shared with them that the baggage activity changed her life, changed their life. And she said she received, actually the post went viral with over 400,000 people viewing this experience here. And she said that she received thousands of letters saying that what a wonderful thing this was for her to do, to engage in with these children. And most of these were from the parents of children who were in her class, or new children in her class. And so she was being lauded for being courageous enough to engage the children in such a process, because she didn't know how things would turn out. But as they did turn out, it was a healing process for all of them. Whatever we are doing, wherever we are, we too can find ways to dare living courageously. And sometimes we can dare living courageously for others in our lives. God bless you.